SoD Phase 3 is here, and I'm going to give you everything you need to know to succeed as a protection warrior in Phase 3. Let's get started then with the offensive and defensive stat priority. The offensive stat priority is focusing on one thing: threat generation. If you've played a DPS warrior like Fury or Arms in the previous phases, or even in Phase 3 of SoD, then you'll be familiar with this stat prio. We're going first and foremost with weapon stats, damage, DPS and speed, trying to get to that 6% hit cap for Sunken Temple. This is on special attacks specifically to hit the bosses. They are seen as 2 levels above you. Then we've got crit strike chance, strength and attack power at 4th, and then agility. Agility is going to give you some crit, etc. And one thing to note on strength and AP is that 1 strength equals 2 attack power. So if you have 10 strength versus 20 attack power, these are the exact same things. Looking at defensive, we're going to want to follow this priority order of stamina, adding of course more health, then armor, which means we're going to take less physical damage per point of armor. Parry and dodge, of course, our chance to dodge and parry those attacks. Defense, which is actually going to decrease the chance that the enemy can hit you, and also decrease the chance of us being critically hit by our enemy. And last but not least is agility. This is also going to grant dodge and armor. Agility is a really interesting one because remember, on the offensive side, it is also going to give us crit as well. If you haven't played protection before, it may actually surprise you that we're not really going anywhere near the protection tree. Because of the insane gear that we can actually get, especially in Phase 3 of Season of Discovery, rather than usual Classic, and the immense power we're getting from the runes, it does mean that we're a lot stronger than we usually would be in Classic WoW, and therefore we don't actually need as much of the protection talents. And there's going to be some humongous damage gains that we can get elsewhere. So let's start going through this. We're going to put 5 out of 5 into Cruelty, increasing our chance to get a crit by 5%. The next one is 5 out of 5 into Unbridled Wrath, giving us a 40% chance to generate an additional point of rage when we deal damage with a melee attack. On the third row down, we're putting 1 point into Improved Cleave. We're going to use this as our filler when we are doing AoE, so a lot in dungeons or on mob packs, etc., trash packs. It's going to increase that damage done by 40%, which is obviously massive. Going along one into Piercing Howl. This is going to reduce the movement speed of enemies near us and cause them to be dazed. It costs 10 rage and lasts for 6 seconds. And then 5 out of 5 into Improved Battle Shout, increasing the attack power of our allies by a further 25%. Going down one more, it's 5 out of 5 into Enrage, giving you a 25% melee damage bonus for 12 seconds, up to a maximum of 12 swings, which is huge, after we are being hit and we are the victim of a critical strike. 2 points going into Improved Execute. Execute is our executability, which means we can only use it when the enemy has reached 20% health or lower, and this is going to reduce the rage cost of that said ability. 1 point then into Death Wish. Can use this every 3 minutes. When we activate it, it's going to increase our physical damage done by 20% and make us immune to fear effects. It is also going to lower our armor and resistances. One thing to note on this is because it's increasing our damage done and it is on a 3-minute cooldown, you want to make sure you at least save 1 instance of it for when your Execute is available, and therefore when the boss is at 20% health or lower. Because Execute does a lot of damage, we want to pair this with our Death Wish when possible. But don't wait at the start of the fight if the fight is going to last longer than 3 minutes, because of course you will be then able to get a second use of it up in the Execute phase, and 1 at the start. We're going to put 3 points into Flurry, increasing our attack speed by 20% for the next 3 swings after we deal a critical strike, which is really good. And then we're going to move on to the Arms tree, putting 3 points into Improved Heroic Strike, reducing the cost of it. 4 into Deflection, increasing our parry chance by 4%. Going over to Improved Rend, we're going to put 3 points into here, increasing the bleed percent by 35%. Going down into Deep Wounds, our final 3 points are going into here, meaning our crit strikes are going to actually cause our opponent to bleed, dealing 60% of our weapon damage over 12 seconds. And that's it for the talents. Let's now go on to the runes. Now, of course, as a protection warrior, we are going to be using a shield, and in Phase 3 of SoD, it's no different. We're therefore on the hands going with Devastate. While you are in defensive stance and have a shield equipped, Sunder Armor, an ability we're going to go through shortly, will also deal damage equal to 150% of your equipped weapons damage per second, increased by 10% of each stack of Sunder Armor already on the target. Now, Sunder Armor is an ability we can use on our target to reduce their armor, and it does stack up to 5 times, meaning Devastate is going to be really useful with this. On the pants, we're going for consumed by rage, meaning for up to 12 seconds or 12 swings after we go above 80 rage, we're going to get 10% more melee damage. And because of this, we do actually want to try and go over 80 rage whenever possible to proc this effect and try and keep cycling it with going above 80 rage when it drops off so that we can keep it up as much as possible. You can do this near indefinitely if you are good at it. Flagellation is going to be on the third and final one from our first phase, gaining a 25% bonus to damage for 12 seconds after activating one of our rage abilities. Again, I'm going to go through those shortly. This is really fantastic. On the waist, we're going with Focused Rage, reducing our rage cost of abilities by 3. Pretty self-explanatory there. It is only on offensive abilities, I must add. On the feet, I would go with Gladiator Stance. This is insane. An aggressive stance that increases your damage while you're wearing a shield, which we will be, by 10%, and increasing block chance by 10%, but also reduces armor by 30 and threat generated. But with all the extra damage we're doing, this can do a lot more damage, and therefore we're actually going to be technically kind of doing more threat, if that makes sense. While wearing a shield in Gladiator Stance, you may use all abilities that are restricted to other stances. I love Gladiator Stance because of this, and we can output an insane amount of damage. For the last two, we've got the Head Rune, which is our new one. We can either go for Shield Mastery, which is going to increase our damage, or Vigilance, which is effectively a new taunt. So Shield Mastery increases all physical damage we deal by 10% when we have a shield equipped. It's going to reduce the duration of any disarm effects used against you by 50%, doesn't stack with any other disarm effects. Vigilance then, the taunt one, focusing your protective gaze on a party or raid member, reducing their damage taken by 3%, and transfers 10% of their threat to you, which is obviously fantastic. Each time they're hit by an attack, your taunt cooldown is refreshed, lasts 30 minutes, which is insane. It is so good, but you can only use it on one target. I mean, if you could use it on the whole raid, then wow, we'd be in La La Land at that point. And finally, we're going to put Rampage on our wrist rune, where we go on a rampage, increasing attack power by 2% and causing the most successful melee attacks to increase attack power by an additional 2%. It does stack up to 5 times, lasting 30 seconds, can only be used after scoring a critical hit. Again, we're adding a ton of damage, increasing abilities here. So how's it all going to come together and how are we going to use it? Well, first of all, because of the Consumed by Rage rune, we want to make sure that we're keeping our rage above 80 whenever we can to actually activate this buff. We've also taken the Flagellation rune, which means it's going to activate after using Blood Rage or Berserker Rage. Use Blood Rage first and foremost, rather than the other one. It's on a 1-minute cooldown, is going to generate 10 rage at the cost of health, and then a further 10 over 10 seconds. And this will mean that Flagellation is then activated after it, meaning we're doing more damage. Once that has worn off, we can then use Berserker Rage, which is only on a 30-second cooldown, rather than 1 minute, which is going to generate extra rage when we take damage and make us immune to fear effects, etc. And again, that one will also generate Flagellation buff, or activate it, should I say, sorry, which will again increase our damage. So you want to try and cycle these as much as you can, keeping Flagellation up as much as possible. Remember we spoke about Sunder Armor and Devastate? Well, this is where they come in the rotation. So Sunder Armor is going to reduce the target's armor by 90, and this can stack up to 5 times. And it does also generate a high amount of threat, which is obviously very good for us prot warriors. And then as a recap on what the Devastate rune does, when we're in defensive stance and have a shield equipped, Sunder Armor is also going to deal damage equal to 150% of our equipped weapons damage per second, which is amazing. And remember, we're going to have 5 stacks of Sunder Armor up. This is increased by 10% per stack of Sunder Armor as well, so up to 50%, which is madness. Making sure that we're keeping up our debuffs on the target, and buffs, buffing our allies with Battle Shout, debuffing our enemies with Demoralizing Roar and Thunderclap. Demoralizing Roar is going to reduce the attack power of our enemies. Thunderclap is going to increase the duration between our enemies' attacks. And then Rampage, this is a maintenance buff. Remember, we've taken this rune. We should actually be keeping this up at all times. There isn't any reason why we shouldn't be. As a recap on that one as well, we're going to go into Rampage, increasing attack power by 2% and causing our successful melee attacks to increase our attack power by an additional 2% as well. And that can also stack up to 5 times. Don't forget what we said about our Death Wish. Use it on cooldown with our Execute, remember, at the end. So if it's, say, a 2-minute fight, you kind of want to use it towards the end. If it's a 3-minute or higher fight where we can use Death Wish more than once, use it once nearer the start to make sure we can use it at the end with our Execute. Execute only being usable at 20% health or below on your enemy, remember. And then after all of that, Heroic Strike, you're just going to use that to dump any excess rage that you do have. Remember, of course, going above 80 rage is what we want to do for the Consumed by Rage rune we're taking. If you want to swap to AoE, just switch out Heroic Strike for Cleave, and that's pretty much it. Your Thunderclap up on number 4 also will actually work on up to 4 targets as well, so you can use that in AoE too. And that's pretty much it for how we're going to play as a prot warrior in Phase 3 of Season of Discovery. If you've got any other questions, do feel free to join my Discord. We've got loads of other players there who are really friendly. We've got class discussion channels, etc. where you can ask questions from the community. You can also join my Patreon, which is going to be linked below, where you can talk to me directly and ask questions via the DM feature there. We also get access to a VIP channel in Discord where you can talk to other Patreons and myself in a much slower format, get all my WoW spreadsheets and UI and Voodoo import, etc., etc. I have a lot of profiles for them. Of course, it also does help support the channel. If you are looking for other SOD guides, or maybe even retail guides, check out my channel and you'll see on the homepage there is this shelf here called Current Class Guides. Once this video is out, there will be an updated playlist here with all SOD Phase 3 guides, and of course, all of the others that you may need. So if you are trying to find where the latest videos are, etc., this shelf is always kept up to date with the latest Phase guides. That now being Phase 3 of SOD.